This is lesson 7.2. It's about graphing exponential functions using translations. So the exponential function is going to be similar to all the other functions that we've studied so far this year, in that you will have a parent function. In this case, our parent function is y equals ab to the x. And each of those things, a and b, tells us something about the graph. The a value will tell us if it's a stretch, compress, or reflect in exactly the same way it did with our quadratics, cubics, and square root functions. So if the absolute value of a is greater than 1, it's going to be a stretch. If the absolute value of a is less than 1 but greater than 0, it will be a compress. And if a is negative, just purely less than 1, negative, then it's going to be a reflection across the x-axis, so it flips the graph upside down. We already know from the last lesson, 7.1, that the b value tells us if it's a growth or decay. So it's a growth if b is greater than 1. It's a decay if b is less than 1. And b cannot be equal to 1. So then we also have translations that go left, right, up, and down. We'll get to those in a minute. So on the left here we have y equals 2 to the x. We graphed this one in the last chapter, and we can graph it using an xy table. So x would be any value we choose, and y is going to be 2 to the x. When graphing these functions, we're really only interested in 2 points, and those 2 points are when x is 0 and x is 1. So if you plug a 0 in here, 2 to the 0 is 1. You plug the 1 in, 2 to the first power is 2. So if we graph those 2 points, 0, 1 and 1, 2, knowing that this is greater than 1, it's going to be a growth, and we have an asymptote on the x-axis, the graph has to look like this. Asymptote on the x-axis. So if we take that original function and we put a 3 on the front of it, that's going to stretch our graph up 3 units. So instead of having the y-axis at 0, 1, it's going to be at 0, 3. And our second point, instead of being at 1, 2, it's at 1, 6. So you can pretty much make an xy table the same as before with 0 and 1, and we get 3 and 6 using the order of operations. Again, we know it's an exponential growth because the b value, 2, is greater than 1. So the graph is going to look something like this. Just stretches out, but basically in the same direction.